Hi, Analisa 6 here, and I am going to give you the February 2023 breakdown for your horoscope. But first, I'm going to tell you about just some of the transits that we have in February and what to expect out of the month. I do horoscopes for the Sober Curator, which is a lifestyle blog for sober living. I also have a website called Lady of Leosure. Ladyofleosure.com is the site, and it is a lifestyle site where I blog about whatever I feel like. It's basically a personal blog. I'm a Leo. It's a take on Lady of Leisure, if you haven't picked that up. I'm a stay-at-home housewife right now due to some chronic health problems that I'm having. And before I was not working, was a dog trainer and a astrologer tarot reader. And so I'm trying to keep my hands in it by continuing to offer some astrological guidance with these videos and doing horoscopes for each sign. February is the first month that we've had in quite a while. Let's actually see. I'm going to check out in the ephemeris here. When was the last time we had a month where there were no retrogrades? Let's see. It looks like April of 2022. Not even the full month. At the end of April, Pluto went retrograde in 2022. So it looks like the last month that we had that was completely free of retrogrades was March 2022. And so this is common. This happens every year where we have a couple months in the year that don't have any retrogrades, and then they just systematically start stationing. And we tend to hear more about Mercury. And the reason for that is because Mercury is the planet that's closest to us. And so Mercury retrograde, especially being the planet that rules communication, tends to impact us the most in ways that we notice. And it happens 3 to 4 times a year, depending on what's going on with Mercury at the time. The other one that we talk about a lot that you'll hear is Mars and Venus. And then the outer planets, when they station retrograde, and the social planets, so the social planets are Jupiter and Saturn, and the outer planets are Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Those last for longer periods of time. And so we don't really focus or talk about them as much in popular culture. As astrologers, we're always talking about that stuff. So when I say we, I'm more so just referring to the culture and meme culture and just kind of, pop astrology. But astrologers, we're so freaking nerdy that we talk about all of it. We're always talking about what's happening in the sky. So February is going to be the first month that we have had no planets retrograde since March of 2022. So that's a pretty big deal. I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to and other podcasts that I've listened to, blogs I've read, other astrologers, and just other people that I'm friends with that are into astrology have all felt like since Mars station direct it was the beginning of January, and then Mercury stationing direct in the middle of January, that we've all felt that shift. And then Uranus station direct. If you watched the last video series, I talked about the new moon in Aquarius being kind of this breakthrough feeling, this breakthrough energy. I wasn't the only one talking about it. It was funny, after I posted all those videos, I started seeing the word breakthrough everywhere, not just with other astrologers, but it was just Uranus, Aquarius, that's how it feels. So we're definitely kind of still in that. I'm recording this January 29th too. So depending on when you listen to this, right now, we're still very much in that wake of that energy that the new moon had, where we're still kind of feeling the refresh of the energy. So a lot of us astrologers were saying things like, you won't really feel like your year's getting started until probably that new moon in Aquarius happens. And then we enter February without any retrogrades and in Aquarius season. And so it is kind of more of this fresh energy. Not everybody does well during Aquarius season. It's still winter and it's still really gloomy and cold in a lot of places. I live in sunny Southern California for a reason. I'm from the Pacific Northwest originally, but I personally am one of those people where Aquarius season, I always have really, really, really bad seasonal depression. And after leaving the Pacific Northwest and moving somewhere with more sun, it doesn't totally get rid of my seasonal depression, but it's way better than it was. And so I think February is still kind of a hard month for some people because of all of those things. And also, if you are a sign that is more in the other time of the year, so like a summer sign or a fall sign, the spring and winter months can be really hard because the sun and sometimes the personal planets are in opposition to your sun and personal planets. And that creates a lot of tension. It feels almost like you're imbalanced because things aren't pulled into what you're comfortable with as much. But I don't know if that makes sense. It does from my astrological perspective, but it might not for some people. But essentially, like an example is that it's Aquarius season. The opposite of Aquarius is Leo. And so Leo, Aquarius opposes Leo. And so for me in my chart, everything that's in Aquarius is opposite what's comfortable for me. And I've noticed that with other people too, or, when there's energy that's opposite you, if you don't have a lot of that energy in your chart already, sometimes those oppositions can feel a little extra hard. For people that have a lot of this energy in their chart, so Aquarius people and people that have planets in Aquarius or their rising or moon in Aquarius, this time of year, while you may still experience some seasonal depression, if you live somewhere where the weather's, doing its thing in a winter way, you might still enjoy the fact that it's your season because the sun's there and the sun is, bringing life and vitality there. I've done a lot of work around my seasonal depression. Moving somewhere that's more sunny helps. So I actually really enjoy Aquarius season more now that I've integrated Aquarius kind of into myself more. So that can also be something that's positive, is to find ways to integrate the archetype of a sign into your life while the sun is passing through it and lean into that. So a couple things to note that we're starting out with besides the sun in Aquarius is we're also starting out the month with Mercury going through those last few degrees of Capricorn. So on February 1st, Mercury will be at 17 degrees Capricorn, and then Mercury will be entering Aquarius, it looks like on the 11th of February. So we still have a couple weeks left of Mercury in Capricorn, which is a really good time to be kind of, now that it's direct and out of the shadow and still in Capricorn, it's a really good time to start putting structures and plans into place for what you actually do want to cultivate for the next month. So this is a great time to write out strategic plans and start initiating those plans. Like this is a good time to act, essentially. So you've heard a lot of us say, wait, it's not the right time. It's not the time for New Year's resolutions. It's not the time to do this or that. It is the time now. So do it, go for it. Another thing that we start out with, before I get into this, Mercury is going to be in Aquarius the rest of the month after the 11th. So we'll have Mercury in Aquarius. This is a good energy for tech people specifically, and also people that are in advocacy work or involved in their community. Aquarius rules the 11th house, which is the house that rules friendship, group organizations, revolution, politics, all that kind of stuff. And so when Mercury's in Aquarius, we also sometimes see a heightened level of people online, specifically in our day and age, really talking about what they feel needs to happen in the world. And so it can kind of get a little intense. There's also sometimes more opportunity for there to be online fights or disagreements during that time too, because everybody kind of gets on a soapbox about the issues that they feel are important to them. And it can just feel like a lot. And so, Aquarius being also the rule breaker, the revolutionary, the activist, sometimes when we have a heightened energy in Aquarius, we'll also see kind of more of that in our media, like that kind of activism, or, just people focused more on community and politics and stuff like that. And so that's something that might be more prevalent in February too, since Mercury's passing through there. You also might feel called to need to express yourself around those types of issues or issues in your community. We're just going to get like a boost of energy in that way. So if you see me all of a sudden going on some tangents on my Instagram account, don't be shocked, because I probably will during that time. It's just over the years, like you just start to see these themes, like the longer that you study this stuff, and it just becomes more and more predictable, where you're like, yeah, okay, there's probably going to be a protest. There's probably going to be a bunch of stuff that happens in the world that sucks, that everybody feels the need to really like talk about online, which I think one of the things I've noticed in the last year since the pandemic started and we had a lot of the riots and issues, once we had kind of Donald Trump, elected out and Biden in, there was kind of this like calmness, I feel like, that happened, at least in my social media. I feel like a lot of the liberal people that I'm friends with just don't post quite as much about activism or things like that. And it's been interesting to me because honestly, not that much has changed, right? Like we're still having a ton of violence in our country with there's been tons of gun violence, and we've seen some stuff, but it really hasn't been the amount of outrage or at least media coverage that we had in 2020. And so it'll be curious to see. I mean, the astrology is better it's more upbeat in February. So I don't know if it's really going to take as dark of a turn in the media. I'm not saying in actuality, but just in terms of what's portrayed in the media as it did in 2020. But I do think that we're going to have more people wanting to step up and talk about some of that stuff. And it's a great time to step up and want to actually implement real change, not just talk about it. That can be a hard thing to do. So researching kind of what causes are important to you and where you feel like you can contribute might be something worth checking out wherever you are, whatever matters to you. Okay, so that's kind of the mercurial influence over the last half of February. Venus, let's talk about where Venus is in February. So Venus is going through Pisces and Aries in February. So on the 1st of February, Venus will be at 6 degrees Pisces, and she will continue through Pisces until it looks like February 20th-ish, and then she'll enter Aries at 0 degrees Aries on that date. So Venus in Pisces is one of my favorite energies. I think it's a lot of people's favorite energies. Venus is what we call exalted in Pisces, which means that she does really well there. And Pisces is the sign that represents like dreams, art, poetry, music, the subconscious, spirituality, the place that we want to go to escape reality and feel romantic and good. And Venus is the planet that represents beauty, romance, pleasure. And so when she's in the sign of Pisces, we might feel really inspired to create. This is a really good energy for artists. It's a really good energy for musicians. It's a really good energy for hopeless romantics and for self-care exercises. The card in the tarot that is ruled by Venus in Pisces is the 9 of Cups. And this card has to do with believing that you have the ability to manifest your dreams and that the intentions that you're setting out for your dreams are going to come to fruition. So it's also kind of, when you draw that card, it's a very like make a wish card, but also make sure you wish for what you really want because you're probably going to manifest it easily. So I do feel like Venus in Pisces kind of holds that tarot energy, right? Like this is the dreamer, the visionary. This is like where we go to kind of make the vision before we put that like mercurial Capricorn plan into place. So the fact that we're starting out the beginning of the month, like with the Venus in Pisces and the Mercury in Capricorn, it is a really good time to take that vision and start implementing the structure to make it happen. That's a really good manifestation energy. Especially now that the moon is ingressing, it's waxing. So it's making its way back into full. When a moon is waxing, we're growing something. And so that's also really positive. When Venus enters Aries towards the end of the month, this is a really good time for acts of self-care and self-love in a more intentional way. And so Aries is the sign that represents the identity. And when Venus is in Aries, it's a really good time to start really pouring your energy back into yourself and taking yourself out on dates, taking yourself out to do things that maybe you wouldn't normally do by yourself. Aries is a very independent sign. Venus and Aries can sometimes come off selfish or self-centered. And so you also want to be mindful that you don't do or say anything that is reactive or aggressive towards people that like, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings unless there's somebody whose feelings you want to hurt. But that can be something to be mindful of too. Like you can just feel a little bit more introverted in a not negative way, but just kind of like really wanting to focus on yourself and kind of building up your self-confidence. So that's very general. Obviously, you'd have to see where Aries is in your chart to see where that's affecting you. And when I get to the horoscopes, that'll be more specific, but that's more of the flavor with Venus at the end of the month. Mars is going to be in Gemini through February, but it's not retrograde anymore. So now we're just moving through and kind of getting that forward. So whatever you were working through from the end of October to the first half of January, hopefully with February, you're going to be gaining more momentum around that. We've talked so much about Mars and Gemini that I'm going to move through that one. Jupiter is still in Aries. So Jupiter went back into Aries at the end of December, I believe. Yeah, and so Jupiter's making its way through Aries. And so again, we do have a pretty big emphasis of Aries energy, having Venus in Aries and Jupiter in Aries at the end of the month. So Jupiter will be in Aries at 6 degrees on the first of the month, and we'll end the month with Jupiter at 11 degrees. So look and see where you have 6 and 11 degrees Aries in your chart, and that's where Jupiter is blessing you for the month of February. Jupiter in Aries is a great time to really expand the self, like get out of your comfort zone, grow in personal development, and try something new. Saturn continues to be in Aquarius for the month of February. Saturn will be making its way from 25 degrees Aquarius to 29 degrees Aquarius. So we're not moving too much there. We still have, I think, yeah, we have this February and the beginning of March with Saturn in Aquarius before Saturn makes its way into Pisces. So that's a whole thing we'll talk about next month. I'm not going to get into it now. So enjoy the last month of Saturn in Aquarius. It's been 2.5 years-ish that Saturn's been in Aquarius. Let's look back actually and see when Saturn entered Aquarius. So Saturn entered Aquarius. I know it's stupid that I don't remember the exact date because it was a really big deal with some of the other transits that we had. So yeah, it was March 22nd of 2020. So yeah, the pandemic started. I mean, it started before, we started seeing the outbreak in like November of 2019, I think, in China, but it really became global when Saturn entered Aquarius. And so we had the Saturn Jupiter conjunction that came later, and we had the Saturn Pluto conjunction that happened right before that, I think. So Saturn Pluto conjunction was, it's dumb that I feel like this is a date I should have internalized forever because of how poignant it was in history. And yet I don't have it memorized. But yeah, so it looks like the Saturn Pluto conjunction started in January. It was January 6th, 2020. So that was the big one that all the astrologers were already talking about. We were already like, what's going to happen? And then the pandemic happened and Saturn entered Aquarius right around the first shutdown. So that was a really poignant day in my life, to be honest. Like the equinox, it was the spring equinox, and Saturn entered Aquarius, and we've just been in the shit, pretty much since. So now Saturn's leaving Aquarius and entering Pisces, and it's going to be in Pisces. I mean, we're not getting ahead of myself. So Saturn enters Pisces in March, but we're going to have that, like, this is the last month of it in Aquarius. So I'm going to try to wait to talk about Saturn in Pisces for next month, because I'm also going to be on Melissa LaFair's podcast talking about Pisces season. So I'll wait and share my thoughts for that. But yeah, it's a big deal to see Saturn moving out of Aquarius. And, I think, like I was talking about earlier, we had a lot of protests and social issues around the world, happen over the last 3 years. And there's been so much political upheaval and just so much stuff has happened, in the last 3 years. It feels like we're living in a different world we're in a different world. And it's just a testament to how powerful Aquarius energy is. It's the energy of the people. It's the energy of the community, the global population, and the politics and the social issues. And Saturn, rules Aquarius. And so Saturn's been in domicile. It's been in domicile for 5 years pretty much, because it had its time in Capricorn. which it also rules, and then it's had its time in Aquarius. And so Saturn's been in signs that are where it's meant to be, that have been very poignant, and then it's about to enter Pisces, you know, which is a totally different energy. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, having Mercury in Aquarius and Saturn in Aquarius at the same time, at the end of, you know, the last half of February, essentially, and just kind of seeing what comes up in this last little bit of energy before we really get a shift, you know. And obviously Aquarius is still going to be a major theme collectively for 2023, because Pluto is finally entering Aquarius after being in Capricorn for 14 years, I think. And that's happening in March too. March is a big month for us collectively with some of the energy shifts that are happening. So again, I'm going to save that for my video next month. Uranus is still in Taurus. Uranus is going to be in Taurus for a while. Uranus will be making its way from 14 degrees into 15 degrees Taurus throughout February. Neptune 23 and 24 degrees Pisces. And so Neptune and Venus are actually going to come together mid-month on February 15th, it looks like. And that's going to be a really powerful energy for art, spiritual. Like, this is a really good time to be dream journaling and doing meditation and subconscious work. I've been having some really powerful dreams since Venus entered Pisces, super lucid. I'm a Pisces moon. I already am a crazy dreamer, but since Venus entered Pisces, I've been having some very lucid dreams. I also had a very Aquarian dream about robots last night that really felt like Aquarius. It felt very much like the Aquarian age is starting to get into my head. So I'm ready. I'm ready for the Aquarian age. Saturn's on my North Node right now too. So I'm like, that Venus Saturn influence in my chart is very heavy. But yeah, that Venus Neptune conjunction that's happening on the 15th in February. This is art, creative projects, spiritual endeavors, transcendental meditation, lucid dreaming, all that kind of stuff is really positive. So if you're motivated to start working on yourself in that way, or dream journaling, this is a really great month to do that, since we have that Venus Neptune conjunction happening. Pluto is going to be making its way again, like the last few degrees of Capricorn. So this is our time to soak up the last little bit of Pluto in Capricorn for what it's worth. I'm ready for Pluto to leave Capricorn. A little afraid of the future with Pluto in Aquarius. I do think we're entering some dystopian Blade Runner sci-fi era of humanity for the next 20 years. But, you know, I decided that I'm ready. I ordered my LED light mask for my face. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just go into, I'm tired of feeling resistant towards the future and tech. And I'm not going to be a techie, but I'm definitely going to just lean into all of the gadgets and hope that living in the desert, where we're already kind of pretty far behind technology out here, that I'll have some time before RoboCops are like taking over my streets. But I don't know, there's a giant military base here, so I'm sure there's already tons of RoboCops where I live. Who knows? All right, so let's talk about some of the other things going on in February. We have we'll talk about our moons. We always got to talk about our moons. So it looks like the first moon of the month is our full moon at 16 degrees Leo on February 5th. And so you're going to want to look and see where you have 16 degrees Leo in your chart. That's where the full moon is going to be hitting. Leo, like I said at the beginning, is the opposite of Aquarius. And so whenever we have a full moon, you know, the light of the sun is reflecting onto the moon and making something known to us. And it's a really good time for manifestation, as well as releasing and letting go of things. And Leo has everything to do with self-expression and creativity, and also our inner child and how we experience joy. Joy is a really big theme for Leo. If we're not happy doing something, we're not going to keep doing it. We chase joy. And we chase the sun. We're ruled by the sun. And so those themes might come up for you. Aquarius also has a really childlike, playful nature too. It really loves socializing and laughing and hanging out with friends. Aquarius and Leo usually have a lot of fun together for that reason. And so that combination of things, you might be reviewing kind of your social circles. You might be reviewing how you express yourself, the way that you kind of put yourself out to the world, or whether or not the people that you surround yourself with are validating the person that you feel like you are, and also reflecting on what brings you joy and what doesn't bring you joy. Those are big themes. Let's see if there's anything else making an aspect to that on February 5th. So, Uranus is going to be squaring that moon. So with breakthroughs and insights, again, Uranus is kind of like sudden change, sudden insights, sudden surprises that we weren't really anticipating. And so Uranus is actually going to be making a square, and that can lend itself to aha moments or things happening on that day that we weren't anticipating. And Uranus in Taurus, stability, financial systems, or health, things like that. So there might be some things that happen that we weren't expecting that are a little bit shocking to us, or just revelations, maybe nothing super surprising, but just oh, that's what I want to do, kind of feeling. It looks like for the 5th, that is the main thing that's happening with the moon, but we do have on that same day, Venus and Mars are actually going to be squaring each other. So the square to the moon and the square between Venus and Mars does lend itself to some tension for sure. The Venus-Mars square could also, because Mars is in Gemini and Venus is in Pisces, there's definitely opportunity for some miscommunication and things to be taken the wrong way. Full moons, I usually feel like that happens a lot just out in the world. So that's something too to maybe be a little aware of while you're navigating. And, even though it's at 11 degrees and the full moon's at 16 degrees, that's still within a 5-degree orb with 2 personal planets. And both of those signs, so Mars trines Aquarius and it makes a Mars in Gemini trines Aquarius and makes a sextile to Leo. So that's actually a really positive energy. So we might feel a boost of energy that day. Pisces, however, makes an inconjunct to Leo, which is a little bit like hard. It's a hard aspect, but it requires us to be creative and kind of harness our internal abilities to kind of make what we want to have make happen. It's a good time for manifestation for sure. There is a little air of make sure that you wish for things or are trying to manifest things that you actually want. I don't think people really understand what that means either. So I think that really asking yourself, do you understand what it means to be careful what you wish for? Because a lot of people will wish for things that they don't actually want or that they don't actually have the means to do right now. So it's almost better to manifest better steps for where you're at now if you're not actually ready for the whole shebang, if that makes sense. Okay, so moving on from the full moon, we have a new moon on February 20th at 1 degree Pisces. So let's see what's going on with that one. So that's also Pisces season, right? So that happens right when the sun has entered Pisces. So we enter Pisces season on the 19th. Happy birthday, Pisces. And then the next day we have that new moon. And it looks like the only other thing that we really have at the early degrees of a sign like that is going to be Venus and Aries. And Aries and Pisces are really close together. And so we'll have a semi-sextile between the two. That's a minor aspect. It's kind of said that there's a little bit of tension with semi-sextiles where because the two signs are so close together, they're not really speaking the same language. And so there can be a little bit of a game of telephone and kind of misunderstanding things. But I do kind of look at the fact that they're both at these early degree points and it's a new moon. Again, this is a great setting intentions energy. And because Venus is in that early sign of Aries, it might be a really good time to set intentions around identity and how you feel about yourself and whether or not you have enough self-love. Again, I was saying Venus and Aries, it's a great time for self-love. New moon in Pisces is a great time for self-care. So those two things together are really good to do on those days. And then also setting intentions for how you can cultivate more of that in your life on a regular basis or in whatever capacity that you might need. So that's happening on the 20th. Let's see if there just happens to be any other major transits going on. I'm looking in the ephemeris. We're going to have Mercury at 13 degrees Capricorn with Gemini, Mars and Gemini at 15 degrees. That I think is making an aspect. I'm trying to think in my head, but I'm going to pull up the chart actually for that day because I need a visual to actually see what's going on. what am I looking at here? Mercury and Mars. So Mars is going to be at 16 degrees. Mercury is going to be at 13 degrees. And so, yeah, that does seem to be a little bit. Oh, it's a trine, duh, because they're in air signs. I was thinking of Mercury still being in Capricorn. So yeah, Mercury and Mars are going to be trining. Another good energy for setting intentions, but we do, even though trines are fast and easy energy, they do kind of cause some conflict with Mars involved. So again, we might be more reactive, we could be more irritable. So this is a really good time to like hunker in on a new moon, do some self-care and kind of say no to the internet. Like this is a great day for an internet fight. I'm not gonna lie. Internet arguments would be not surprising to me with a Mercury Mars trine in Aquarius and Gemini. So it'll be interesting to see. Also interesting with Venus entering Aries. I don't know what's going to be happening in the world that day politically, and I don't do electional astrology or anything like that, but it would be interesting to see if there is some kind of protest or uproar about something that day somewhere. Let me look at that chart again and just see. I'm looking to see if there's anything else poignant. For the most part, those are kind of the major transits. I mean, Saturn's starting to get pretty close. Saturn's getting close to a Sun conjunction. It's ingressing towards that. So that's definitely an energy that we're going to start feeling more and more as Saturn gets closer to Pisces. And let's see. Jupiter is actually going to be conjunct Chiron. I don't talk about Chiron a lot in these. I kind of try to keep it simple, but Jupiter and Chiron are going to be pretty close together. So yeah, so we might be really working on some internal things that we're thinking about wanting to change about ourselves or work through. So yeah, that new moon's going to be a good time. If you're an artist and you like to do things kind of by yourself or alone, it's a really good energy to just hunker in and do that. It is a really good social energy, but it lends itself to being more aggressive and combative. Anxiety is also really likely around this time. So this might be a time where we need to work more on the things like the tools that help us work through anxiety. So if you have anxiety during this new moon, finding ways to release that energy. For some people, exercise is really good. For others, meditation is really good. For some, it's just listening to music and vegging out, or watching TV and vegging out. Whatever modality helps you. But you might feel a little anxious around that time as well. So those are some other things to kind of be aware of. That is a pretty thorough breakdown, if I do say so myself, on the month of February. I'm sure there's a few other transits going on over the month that I didn't cover, but I think this is long enough. I hope you have a great month. This is one of our only retrograde free months of the year, so enjoy it. And stay tuned for your horoscope. Also, one last thing, please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any other thoughts or things that you want me to include in these videos. Nobody really ever comments on these. I don't even know if people watch them till the end. So even just hitting the like button, subscribing, anything like that helps my channel get more views. And this is something that's really enjoyable for me to do every month while I'm not working. So feel free to interact with me on my platform and let me know if there's more questions or videos that you want to see around this subject. All right, I'll talk to you soon.